And again, welcome to today's webcast, what is called Computing with AWS. Our presenter today is Reed Maloney, Product Manager at Amazon Web Services. Reed, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Bowen. Last week, I was down at reInvent. And for those of you who do not know what reInvent is, it's AWS's annual developer conference that's held in Las Vegas. And while I was there, I was just amazed by some of the innovative stories that I heard from some of the 9,000 customers that were in attendance. You know, companies that really put the tools that AWS offers in the hands of their engineers and developers were really just able to create, new applications that support either their customers or internal customers or even just brand new lines of business in often just weeks or months. And it's just really powerful to watch how these tools are being used across a wide range of businesses, such as the types of businesses that are in attendance today. And that is why I'm really excited and always excited to really present on the fundamentals of cloud computing to help people really with their first step to understand what these tools are and how they can really be effectively utilized within any type of organization. And so we're going to cover today really, again, the basics, like what is cloud, what are the benefits, talk about who's using the cloud, the types of workloads and use cases that they're using the cloud for. And then we're going to really dive into the products. We're going to talk about specifically what is the broad set of products that we offer. And we'll do a little bit of time where we are bringing some of those products together to help you understand how you can use these products together to run the types of workloads that you're here and potentially interested in running and evaluating the cloud for. And then we'll also talk about some of the best next steps that you can take depending on where you are in terms of from a project timeline perspective to help you evaluate and start taking the steps to implementing a workload with AWS or another workload with AWS. So again, this is the most common question that people first ask is just what is cloud computing? There's been, the cloud is thrown around to mean so many different things from different press articles or different blogs or different anything that's written out there, different conversations you'll have with your colleagues. And so the way we look at it is like really whether you're in retail or real estate, your business depends on applications that run reliably and securely without breaking the bank. And so AWS provides a complete set of compute, storage, database, analytics, and application services, all of which are available via the internet to help you run those applications. And so it's access to these broad set of services via the internet in an on-demand manner, meaning that you only pay for the resources that you use. That is really what cloud computing is all about. And having that on-demand access to this broad set of tools and resources via the internet really enables businesses to achieve great benefits, which is why, again, we've seen such a rapid adoption of cloud computing, of Amazon Web Services specifically. So looking at those benefits, we really break it down to these 6 main benefits you see on the slide in front of you. One of the ones that we hear from our customers, again, is just being able to convert CapEx into OpEx and spend on a pay-as-you-go basis and use the scarce capital that they have in their business for other investments is just really valuable to them overall. And also, if there's not much capital initially to try out an idea, which we'll get to in one of the other value props here, you can then actually go and still try that idea without significant capital resources. The other one is just a total lower cost of IT. Since we invest and operate at such high scale, we pay less per unit than most anybody else in the IT industry. And since we run our business on a high volume, low margin basis, which is also quite unique, that combination of high scale and low margins allows us to pass significant cost savings along to our customers. And as a proof point, we've lowered our prices over 35 times since without sort of in the absence of competitive pressure to do so. And so we're continually bringing down the total cost of running these workloads. Third, you don't have to guess capacity. Due to the elastic nature and the pay-as-you-go services that we offer, you only have to pay for what you use. And so let's say you're running a website, a major website like the Four Seasons does for their main marketing site. And all of a sudden on Desperate Housewives, which happened to them, they were talking about one of the Four Seasons properties, and they got this huge wave of traffic. They were able to quickly bring on the capacity they needed to effectively handle that increased scale, which was something that they just wouldn't have been able to predict. And other than that, it's even in some other workloads where it might not be quite as random in terms of the amount of capacity you'll need. The farther out you have to look into the future, as with any model capacity or financial model that your business may create, your assumptions get weaker and weaker. And with the cloud, you just can have access to those resources so much faster that you don't have to look as far out, and you just don't need to guess that capacity anymore. This is the point I hit on initially with the CapEx one, but in terms of increased innovation, and this is one and maybe the largest benefit that we hear from our customers on a continual basis, which is by enabling our business to try so many different ideas without the cost or the expense of having to go through what a failure may have taken in sort of the past IT model, and being able to just get the resources they needed to try out this large number of ideas, whether they're applications that improve some functionality, or again, whether it could be an entirely new line of business that occurs online. Having the ability to just try those and see which ones succeed and try them quickly has really increased innovation within many of the customers who have broadly adopted Amazon Web Services. And then no undifferentiated heavy lifting. With Amazon, we're covering the racking and stacking of gear, which is important. IT has to work, but it's not something that typically would give someone an advantage. It doesn't help them win over their competitors and win additional customers. And it takes lots and lots of time and money and can become a big distraction in terms of managing those resources from things that can truly differentiate your business. And then go global. Again, I'll show a map later in the presentation where you can see where the regions where our facilities exist physically. But with AWS, because of that broad footprint, global footprint, you can expand or create global applications in minutes, whereas before it may have been cost prohibitive to stand up another facility, and so you are willing to, we'll say, live with the lower level of performance for certain geographies in the world, just so you wouldn't have to deal with necessarily building out another complex or going through a large round of contract negotiations to set up facilities other places in the world. So who's using AWS and what are they using it for? And so this is just a list of some of the most popular internet businesses and startups that are out there that are using AWS for the main portions of their business, for the analytics of their business, for the storage of their business, depending on the use case, depending on the company listed in this slide. And we've also seen a broad range of adoption from enterprises as well. Again, with a large mix of applications from big data analytics to websites to SharePoint and other business applications like SAP that they're running on Amazon Web Services. So I'll go into a couple of specific examples. This is an example from SAP Capital IQ. And they provide, this is an organization that provides multi-asset class data research and analytics to institutional investors and investment advisors, wealth managers all around the world. Now, that platform is unique to them in terms of that they offer a broad set of quantitative and qualitative data about companies and people. And they underpin that with a deep level of information with great analytic and visualization tools for their clients. So when they were looking at AWS, they said, well, we're a clear leader in cloud services, and they were interested in getting into Hadoop. And AWS provides AWS Elastic MapReduce, which allowed them to do that very easily. And while they had extensive in-house IT infrastructure, they wanted to understand what it would take to ramp, and really with our model, it provided them a great opportunity to prototype and evaluate quickly in terms of running this type of big data analytics workload with Amazon Web Services. So Lionsgate here is a $2 billion diversified global entertainment corporation that produces feature films and television shows, which they distribute globally. Some of their award-winning shows would be like Mad Men on TV and the movie Hunger Games. And as a successful media entertainment company, they were faced with IT challenges that confront many growing businesses, which were ever-expanding infrastructure and costs, increasing enterprise application workloads, tighter time to market overall. And they really were looking at AWS because the economics were so compelling. The AWS cloud services were easy for them to use via the management console, APIs, and tools they already had. And the system was secure and flexible for them as well. And so they were able to really reduce time to market for these workloads, be able to improve how they were doing development and tests around these workloads as well, and reduce the overall cost of operating. As you can see, they saved $1 million over 3 years by working with AWS. And then the last example here is Samsung. Samsung runs their Smart Hub application on Amazon Web Services. And this application sits essentially at the center or the core of their connected TV sets. So as you may or may not know, Samsung has a line of products that connect directly to the internet and provide this user interface that enables their customers to directly interact with the applications that they like to consume via their TV over the internet. Now, the Smart Hub application is what sits behind that and powers that experience for their customers. And by their calculations, by working with AWS, again, not only did we help them get to market quickly, but they estimate that they were able to save $34 million by working with AWS. So in terms of getting these benefits for the customer, for our customers, and sort of the growth we've seen from our customers, like, well, what are those products? And what are these customers using to actually help them run these workloads? And so we'll get into the specifics of the products in a moment. This is really just a simplified view of the sets of offering and sort of our overall, we'll say, platform of tools that we offer to organizations. And so at the bottom, we have our global infrastructure, and again, I'll cover where that is on our next slide. We have networking services, services that focus on compute, services that focus on storage, services focus on database, application services, and then an additional set of services that help you deploy and administer those applications or an overall sort of shared service IT environment on Amazon Web Services. So here's a map. We have 9 regions globally, and you can see those on the map in front of you. Each of these regions is a set of availability zones. An availability zone you can think of as essentially as a data center globally. So these are footprints where we have physical installations that you can leverage. And while the data centers we build in each region, they are fault tolerant. So they are set up on different grids to ensure that in the case of natural disasters or outages in terms of power of one physical facility, that it is fault tolerant from other facilities that are within that area. And so our footprint is continuously expanding as we increase capacity, which enables us to continue to add additional locations to meet the needs of our customers worldwide. And we really do listen to our customers here, and we think we're far from done here. So please let us know if there are additional areas that you would require to help support your business as well. Also, all of these services, again, that are in these areas geographically that I just described, we also work on, security is our number one priority. And so this is just a list of some of the accreditations that we have received for our services. And again, you could go into each of those in detail, like ISO 27000 and FISMA Moderate, which is one that enables us to run what are called sensitive workloads for the federal government. All of these are ones that are not specific to, let's say, a certain environment or a certain region or availability zone. When we build to a standard, every one of our customers gets to leverage that standard. And so please visit our security center if you're interested in learning more about our security accreditations that we have received. And we also have detailed white papers, which can be a great point to really dive deep if you're interested in more in this topic, to really learn about our approach, our methodologies of our controls, and how we're able to continually achieve more and very high levels of security accreditations. Additionally, these services are available via different purchasing models, and it does depend on the service. Some services have all of the purchasing models you see in front of you, and I'll run through them. The one that people know is for the most, that's on demand in terms of just paying by the hour or by the resource for what you need, and that's it. And so the first one in there is actually free tier, which we'll talk a little bit more about later in terms of some of the next steps you may want to take, is for a variety. For some of our products, we offer a free tier of usage that you can use to run POCs, try products out, get started. Then there's the on-demand version, which you just covered. But we also, for some of our products, have a reserved version where you can make a low one-time payment and then receive a significant discount for future hourly charges where you would be using that capacity. We also have this unique pricing model called Spot, where we enable customers to bid on resources at a spot price, and that market fluctuates depending on supply and demand throughout the day. And so this is great for time-insensitive or transient workloads. Also really good for highly parallel workloads where you may be able to drop one node in the job without affecting the overall job that you're running. And then we also have dedicated instances where you can run on hardware that is just dedicated to a single customer. And then that's a use case where it's good for workloads that are highly sensitive or more focused on have a specific compliance need for that type of environment. So now we're going to start getting into the specific services that go into these sections of our overall platform. And the first one we'll start with is our compute services and Amazon EC2 specifically, or Elastic Compute Cloud. And so Amazon EC2 are virtual servers in the cloud. Now these virtual servers come in a wide range of instance types. And an instance you can think of as a virtual machine that range from our micro instance, which is the one that's available in our free tier, to very powerful cluster compute instances. And we have actually 23 different instance types available in varying levels of compute, memory, and I/O, so that you can get the type of resource that works very well for your application. And so specifically, we have families of instances that are focused on high storage, high memory, high compute, and then also cluster computing instances. So on these virtual machines with a broad range of configurations in terms of the hardware itself, you can also run Windows or Linux distributions on top of them. And then you can configure those in any way that you want to overall. And so those configurations from the OS up can be saved as what's called a Amazon machine image. And that's just an image for your virtual machine, which you can use to then launch additional similar instances, or to use to spin up that type of configuration or that type of instance only when you need to use it, and then again spin them back down when you don't need to use them anymore. You can have full root and administrative rights to your instances, and we have a feature called security groups, which puts your instances with a full firewall control of that set. I'll also talk about a virtual private cloud later, which works with EC2 instances in our networking group, and then that's a feature with EC2 that allows you to logically isolate just your set of resources. Again, and I'll cover that more later. So with these elastic compute virtual machines, you can spin up 1, 10, hundreds in minutes as you need to support your workload. And we have a service called auto scaling that can help you do that automatically to help match the demand of your specific application. So that's what auto scale is. It's a set of rules that you define that can say something like, as CPU utilization hits 70%, I want you to launch another one of these EC2 instances. There's some work required then for you to orchestrate getting that AMI configured after you stand it up, but auto scaling helps you stand up the physical infrastructure. And then elastic load balancing is a service that, again, helps you balance the load as a service instead of what you could do, for example, from a load balancing perspective, is you could use EC2, you could configure load balancing software, and you could configure, again, you could use that as a load balancer. But with our service, it automatically scales to handle any level of request volume, and then it load balances even across multiple availability zones. And then we check, it can automatically check the health of instances and take them in or out of service. And so that could be a great service for working with EC2 is leveraging load balancing and then auto scaling to create a really dynamic tier of your application. At Amazon at reInvent last week, we announced a new service called Amazon Workspaces. And Amazon Workspaces is a fully managed desktop computing service in the cloud. It allows customers to easily provision cloud-based desktops that allow end users to access documents, the applications, resources with their device of choice, like laptops, iPads, Kindle Fires, Android tablets. And with a few clicks on the AWS Management Console, you can provision this high-quality desktop experience for any number of users at a cost that is highly competitive with traditional desktops and half the cost of most virtual desktop infrastructure solutions. So here's a set of our networking services. We talked about Amazon Virtual Private Cloud when I was just talking about EC2 instances in general. And so again, Virtual private cloud gives you a logically isolated set of resources in the cloud. And you have complete control to provision your own IP addressing, to create subnets, to configure route tables and network gateways. And then you can run with that. You can run sort of in that fully private environment. You could do with non-VPC EC2 and VPC EC2 overall. And then you can connect that VPC or virtual data center to your own data centers. And that's one way where the next service comes in, which is Amazon Direct Connect. This is a way to directly connect AWS, your data center to AWS privately using a 1 or 10 gig connection to Amazon Web Services, bypassing the public internet. And you can it is a sub interface on the physical circuit with multiple logical circuits, which can be private connections to your VPC or public connections to AWS. And then Route 53 is our flexible and scalable domain name system service. And Route 53 has some great features to it to help customers get to your application very quickly. It uses something called latency-based routing. And so based off of our continual real-time analysis of networks throughout the world, we actually route customers based off of latency and not distance to get them to the origin that is actually the fastest for your application. It also has a failover integration with edge services like CloudFront. So if you're using CloudFront, which I'll cover in a moment, that's our content delivery network, and one of those edge locations is not responding or not serving your customers, it will automatically route them to the next location, again, based off of the next fastest response time to your customers. And so that's Amazon Route 53. For our storage services, I'm going to start with Amazon EBS. So Amazon EBS is block storage that is used with Amazon EC2. You can think of it as sort of like a hard drive connected with your EC2 instance, but it's much more than that. I mean, we replicate data for durability, and so it's something that you can use with one EC2 instance, but you can replicate that EBS volume and then use it with additional EC2 instances as well to replicate storage or to help launch new EC2 instances. It also integrates with Amazon S3, which is our next service, which really enables internet scale storage via an API for things like images, videos, files, binaries. But it also takes in snapshots from EBS. And so there's a way to take all of your block storage and then save it as an object into Amazon S3 via something we offer called a snapshot. And that Amazon S3 is designed to provide 11 nines of durability based off of the way the service operates. So you can, as you're working with your application data, you can snapshot it into S3 for that level of durability to maintain that there. And then we also have a storage service for archiving and for backup called Amazon Glacier. And so Amazon Glacier is used for longer term storage, and it also supports 11 nines of durability, but it does this at a much lower price point, at about 1 penny per gigabyte per month. The difference is it has longer retrieval times. So when you're asking for that data back, it's not immediate like it is for S3. You can make a call to S3 and immediately your data shows up. With Glacier, it doesn't work that way, and that's how we're able to offer, again, a much lower price point for this longer term data. And Glacier can transition data directly back to S3, making it more active. We also have a storage product called AWS Storage Gateway. And this is designed to integrate your on-premise IT storage and AWS storage through this gateway. It runs on a VM in your data center and provides block-level access to the data. And then in AWS, you can access that data back if you were to, say, use that data to fail over an application back into the cloud. It's there accessible via our different services if you stand it up, such as in a situation like disaster recovery. This is just a small set of the application services that we offer. And again, I'm not covering every service in the platform. I'm giving you an idea of the set that we have overall in terms of the tools, and to go and really dive into all the different, every different service that we do offer. I invite you to go to our website, and within our navigation, you can look into these same categories, and you can drill into other services like Amazon SQS, simple queuing service, Amazon SES, simple email service, Amazon SNS, simple notification service, that can be used as components in many of your applications. In this case, we'll talk about Amazon CloudFront. Again, Amazon CloudFront is our global content delivery network. We have over 40 edge locations around the world, and so this helps you deliver content to your customers very quickly, no matter where they are in the world. And it works seamlessly with S3 and EC2 origin servers. For Amazon Cloud Search, again, if you want to add search functionality into your application, which is based upon Amazon's A9 search engine, you can use Amazon Cloud Search and integrate that into your overall application. This is a fully managed service with a pretty sophisticated feature set for search. And then Amazon Elastic Transcoder, this is a transcoding service in the cloud to help you encode videos into the formats that help you reach your customers on their device of choice. So that can be at different resolutions, different bit rates, different output types, to help support HLS streaming, and so that you can use that service for transcoding and video needs that your organization may have. Another product that we launched at reInvent last week is Amazon AppStream. And Amazon AppStream is a flexible, low-latency service that lets you stream resource-intensive applications and games from the cloud. It deploys and renders your application on our infrastructure, on AWS infrastructure, and streams the output to any mass market device, such as personal computers, tablets, and mobile phones. And because the application is running in the cloud, it can scale to handle the vast computational and storage needs of the workload, regardless of the device that your customers are actually using. And you can choose to stream either all or parts of your application from the cloud. It really enables use cases for games and applications that just wouldn't be possible running natively on the mass market device itself. And so really it reduces the constraints that the client-side device could put on your application or parts of your application. This is the database services we offer. Now, Amazon RDS is a managed relational database service, and there's no need to install or with RDS, there's no need to install or manage your database instance. You can create MySQL, SQL, Oracle, and recently announced Postgres databases with AWS. And we do automatic backups, we do point-in-time recovery, we specify the I/O output throughput depending on your requirements. We have automated failover to slave hosts, and for certain types, you can select a multi-availability zone deployment with just a click, enabling concurrent writes to have a much more redundant database for your applications. We also offer a fully managed NoSQL database. This is fully distributed to the point that you can go to our AWS Management Console and literally type in the read and write throughput that you need for your application, and then we will deliver that application. We will deliver that level of throughput with single millisecond latency and almost very, very little variation in terms of the response times that you'll see from Amazon DynamoDB. We also have a caching service. This is, again, just an in-memory caching service for Memcached and Redis, and you can scale it simply from one to many nodes. And it's just like any caching service, it's working very fast from an in-memory solution. And so that can be a component of your application where we'll manage that your caching tier for you to take that work off of sort of your administrative task of keeping that application performing and performing quickly. Here's a set of our big data services. As we mentioned earlier with the customer example, SAP, the S&P, excuse me. Amazon Elastic MapReduce is a hosted Hadoop framework, managed Hadoop framework. And you can use as many or as few compute instances as you want to run your Hadoop jobs. You can modify that job while it's running. It integrates with instance types such as Spot, so that the job can bring on additional instances if the spot price goes below a certain point. And it also integrates with some of the other services that you may be pulling data from or pushing data to after your Hadoop job, such as S3 and DynamoDB. And then we integrate with, we can leverage things like Hive and Pig in terms of analytic scripts that you would write something like Amazon Elastic MapReduce. AWS Data Pipeline, now this is the service that allows you to move data among the different AWS services and on-premise data services. So it allows you to design data-driven workflows, and then, again, it just enables you to move data from service to service as you need to support your application or to support a range of applications overall. Amazon Redshift is our petabyte-scale data warehouse as a service. It uses Postgres to query your data warehouse. It easily and rapidly scales out from small scale analytics workloads to petabyte-size analytics workloads. And it's 1/10 or less the cost of traditional data warehouse solutions. Again, you only pay for what you use. Additionally, Redshift is compatible with many of the popular SQL and BI tools. At Amazon reInvent, here we announced another big data service, which is called Amazon Kinesis. And Amazon Kinesis is a fully managed service for real-time processing of streaming data at massive scale. And so instead of collecting a huge amount of data on a daily basis and batching that and running that information to then operationalize your data or report on what's going on, Amazon Kinesis will allow you to do that in real time. So it can collect and process hundreds of terabytes of data per hour from hundreds of thousands of sources, and things like sensors or social media or data that your servers are creating. And that allows you to easily write applications that process that information in real time. Now, some of the uses for that would be around like website click streams, marketing financial information, manufacturing instrumentation. And so in this image, we're talking about some of the reports you might be able to see where you're monitoring something physical with a set of sensors, and you see something that's abnormal. You could have very quickly have response teams react to what they're seeing to ensure that things stay consistent and stay the way they're supposed to within your operations. These are some of our deployment and administrative services. And so Amazon CloudWatch is one that allows you to monitor your resources via the AWS Management Console. We can gather metrics. What we do is we do our own metrics as well, but you can give us metrics, and we will be able to show you how your resources are being utilized. We have a service called Identity and Access Management. Again, this helps you create users and groups and set permissions on our services, including to like DynamoDB, for example, including down to really fine-grained access controls where they only have control of certain records, for example, within that table. So these permissions will be very detailed, and we have integrations to ensure that you can use your identities that you already have within your organization directly with Amazon IAM and the resource levels and permissions that they'd have available within their AWS environment. AWS OpsWorks is a DevOps framework for managing application stacks that you run. It uses Chef to manage different application layers that you define, and then you can also write custom Chef recipes and use OpsWorks to deploy those recipes in your stacks. And so that can make scaling much simpler, can also just make deploying overall an application stack very easy as well. AWS CloudFormation is a service that allows you to define templates that provision resources. So you can think of this as essentially an architecture recipe. So you would design the architecture for your application, combining a set of different AWS services and a set of different configurations for, let's say, what you're running on EC2. And then you can essentially just publish that recipe, and we will bring up all of those resources that essentially build that exact architecture. You can also use something called CloudFormer, which works with CloudFormation, where if you set up your set of resources that comprises your architecture, we'll actually be able to create that recipe or script for you if you want to use it later. And so an example might be you want to run an A/B test with the same architecture but with new code. And so you're running your production application, use CloudFormer to recreate a recipe for that application. You then launch that with CloudFormation, you load in the new code, and then you start testing against that new environment overall. And so it can be a really handy tool, again, for administering your workloads on AWS. And then AWS Elastic Beanstalk, this is a PaaS solution where you just give us your code. Say you're working in Visual Studio or Eclipse, and you're building a Java, PHP, .NET, Ruby, Python application. You can submit that to us, and we will provision the resources behind it to run that application for you. Again, also within this area, at reInvent last week, we launched a service called AWS CloudTrail. And CloudTrail is a web service that records the AWS API calls for your account and delivers those log files to you. And so the recorded information includes the identity of the API caller, the time of the call, the source IP address of the API caller, the request parameters, and the response elements returned by the AWS service. So with CloudTrail, you get a history of all of the AWS API calls for your account, including the ones made from the management console, the SDKs, the command line tools, and the higher level services, some of the ones we were just talking about, like AWS CloudFormation. And so it enables you to then do things like security analysis, resource change tracking, and compliance auditing. Now, with our ecosystem has come in to help you then manage with your existing tools as well. And so while we're providing a set of tools which you can incorporate and use, you can also use the existing tools you have to manage your AWS environment. And in terms of also supporting a wide range of technologies overall so that you can really work to run and configure the workloads that you're interested in, that you're looking to run for your business. And so with all of those services we've talked about and sort of the initial customer adoption, we talked about at the very beginning of the presentation, Gartner said for the Magic Quadrant for infrastructure as a service, this is sort of where we see AWS in the market overall, based off of how we're continuing to innovate on behalf of our customers. So I want to quickly bring some of the services together and show you how you could use them to build an application, web application, and then also how you can use them to, let's say, connect your on-premise or map your on-premise resources to the cloud. And then we'll get into some of the few next steps you could take. And then we should have a few minutes left to open that up for Q&A. So here's a web application example where we're using a set of services. In this case, I have EC2 listed. That's the orange box you see there within a security group, and they're within two different availability zones. Again, availability zones being fault-tolerant data centers. You can think of them as fault-tolerant data centers. I did not put EBS in this, but each EC2 instance here would likely be utilizing EBS, although they don't have to. EBS is, again, the block storage that you would use with your instance type. And then here I have a master database, which is running via RDS, and then also a slave, which could as a replica. So the request comes in. Depending on what's needed, Amazon Route 53 can help route that to essentially an edge location to retrieve many of the components of what that user is requesting, and then also to the origin for what that user would need. And so then Amazon Elastic Load Balancing loads balances that request across your different EC2 across your EC2 resources in the different availability zones. And as needed, since these EC2 instances are in auto-scaling groups, as that request load would increase, we can increase the number of EC2 instances in each of those availability zones. Those EC2 instances are getting information as required, reading and writing from that database, which is then either backing up via multi-AZ deployment synchronously, or if you're using it as just a read replica, which is also offered via RDS, that would be asynchronous in this case. One of the neat things is that a lot of what you can run from CloudFront is dynamic as well, so it's not just for static content. The way I have this image drawn up is it's using S3 as an origin for a lot of the static content, but it can also use EC2 as an origin for some more of your dynamic content. And so if you are looking at web applications, I would definitely go visit CloudFront, sort of dive into what you can actually do from a dynamic web application standpoint on the edge. Now, in terms of integrating with on-prem, in terms of some of the resources we have, again, you may use Active Directory. As we talked about, we have identity and access management. In terms of your network configuration, you have VPC and a private network. In terms of encryption, you can set up an HSM appliance within the cloud. And then from backup appliances, again, a storage gateway, we have cloud backups, or you could just store that in S3 or even archive it directly in Glacier. And then the connection point to have on-prem apps or just your non-prem environment with an AWS environment, you could use something like Amazon Direct Connect and set up that dedicated network to the cloud. So as we're going to get into the next step section, I just want to have a quick poll so I can focus the time we have remaining on sort of the next steps that are most beneficial to the customers we have online today. So if you could just select a choice and then click submit, just take about 10 more seconds to do that. We'll just get into a few of our last slides on some of the next things you can do. Okay, great, thanks. So it looks like we have, it's sort of about 50% have a project, a little bit more than that, about 50% not quite, and maybe looking for what that first project would be. And so one of the steps that actually works for everybody in this case is whether you have a project in mind and you're evaluating us, what you can do is just go try some of our services. And so with Amazon EC2, you get 750 hours a month of both a Linux and a Windows micro instance. And you can stand those up and run some sort of basic application on them. With S3, you have 5 gigs of storage. And with EBS that you would use with EC2, you have 30 gigs of storage to use. So there's quite a bit around that you can just play with in terms of our free tier to get a good sense of what it's like to use our services. Now, even if you went above our free tier, which we give you the ability to do immediately, you can still just pay for what you use. So if the type of application you might want to do a POC with, something that you're running potentially on just a single instance today, you could go find a similar instance type or try a couple out, and it still would cost you very little to trial those if you need to do something that's above a micro. Now, once you're sort of done playing with those instances, you may find that using Amazon Elastic Beanstalk is a really great way to just stand up an application in the cloud in a really short period of time. So if you already have an app that's like Java or .NET or PHP, Node.js, Python, or Ruby, which Amazon Elastic Beanstalk supports, you can just go into the management console. You can go here and just select, right now it says Tomcat, but you can select any of those different stacks to support any of those different types of applications I mentioned. And then in this case, I've actually selected, there's 2 environments. One is just to launch a single instance. And so you can just launch that on a single instance, and depending on the resources you need, that can actually be within the free tier. And that gives you a really good sense of just what it's like with these applications. And again, that's good whether you have a project in mind or not, is to just sort of get hands-on and really feel what it's like to work with these services that we've described today. There's actually, I forgot about this, there's actually a link in your console to the AWS free tier. So if you want to go check out the free tier and see more details about it, essentially just sign up and get hands-on, you can do that by clicking that link, and it will bring you right to the page within your console. Another thing you may want to do is that if you aren't a developer, you may just want to set up IAM accounts for your developers or your engineers. You can go set up an account, go to Identity and Access Management, and start setting up different users and giving them different permissions levels to try and use AWS within your account overall. And that can be another good sense for, if you're in an evaluation process of giving the people who are going to be hands-on with these tools an ability to experience them throughout that process. Now, it looked like with some of the people that had projects in the next 3 months, you may have already done what I just mentioned, and my guess is that you have. And so you're probably really on to designing your application for the cloud. We have a large set of reference architectures to help you with that process. And obviously, that's your key next step. If you don't have a great design, using a broad set of the products and the way that you want to use them configured before you start writing your code, you may head down a path that you would later want to come back and redesign for, which I think we all know is not nearly as efficient a process of getting the design right first. And so if you look on our website, we have an architecture center that can help you with those designs. Now, if you're not looking to do this yourself and you have a project in mind and you're looking for some partners who can help, we have a really broad set of partners, technology partners, that can help you not only with your design, but with your implementation, integration, and management of your resources. And so I invite you to check them out on our website as well. You can just view our partner network and look for a partner that you think best supports the project that you have in mind. And then lastly, again, if you want to do this yourself, and we just talked about design, you're like, okay, I want to design this, but I don't really have the resources in-house to do it, although I want to develop those resources. Check out our AWS training and certification. We do have architecture courses, developer courses for different roles that your individuals would be interested in. And so with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. I know we don't have much time for questions today. We do have a forum online. If you search AWS forum, you can go to that and post your questions in that forum if we weren't able to get to them today. And we will try to respond to some of these even past the webinar. But to make sure you get them answered, I'd recommend if we don't get to it in the next couple of minutes, that you post them in the forum. And thank you.
Okay, great. Let's jump into some questions, Reed. We do have lots of questions. So there are a few questions about storage. So Rahida wants to know what is the optimum solution offered for long-term and high-volume data storage. It's about 1 to 2 terabytes.
Yeah, so if your data is going to be accessed often and repeatedly, for that type of storage, Amazon S3 would be the best service for that use case. If you then had, let's say, this high volume storage go into something that didn't need to be accessed as often or needed to be accessed rarely, I would recommend using Amazon Glacier, as it would serve that use case and you'd get a lower cost for that storage overall.
Okay, another question regarding to storage. So John wants to learn about the storage that comes with the EC2 instance. Is that permanent storage?
Yeah, so we call this ephemeral storage. And so if you go to our page on EC2 instance types, we'll show you exactly the storage that's available on that instance type. Some of it, for some of our instance types, that's SSDs. For some of those instance types, it's just it's not SSD storage, and just you'll have varying levels of performance. The key thing to understand about that storage is that it does not persist if the instance is shut down or terminated or goes offline for any reason. And so it's really important that you have a plan set up where that data will not be lost overall. And so let's say you're running ephemeral for a really high throughput application that's using something like Cassandra or Mongo, and you're looking for hundreds of thousands of IOPS. You just need to ensure that your strategy using those databases, make sure that you're writing to multiple places concurrently before you're acknowledging that write, to ensure that if one of those instances goes down and you lose all the storage, all the data that's on that instance type, it is persisted on a different instance that you can then spin up another one, replicate that data over, and ensure that you have a plan for how do you keep your data durable overall.
Okay, and a few questions about the new services we just launched. Question from Kitan want to know if we use Workspace and need to install new software from vendors, can we install ourselves or do we have to work with Amazon?
I have to say it probably depends on the situation, but typically you can do it yourself. I don't see any reason why we would have any requirement for you to work with us to install some software. I would read in detail the detail page for Workspaces. I'd just go visit that page overall, but I don't see any reason that we would need to be involved in that.
Great. Yeah. I think another question is more about lots of customers want to have more details in what AppStream are made for.
In what AppStream is made for?
Yeah.
So anytime, I can think of it just from like a targeting perspective as well, right? So if you're trying to deliver a better customer experience on your site, what you may want to do is take information based off of behavior, aggregate that information that's occurring across your site, and then use that as a set of different variables to be able to, let's say, personalize someone's experience, potentially within the same session that they're on right now. Often what happens is those jobs are run and batched in the back end, and so it would take you a day to aggregate the data and to understand how you could use that information to deliver a better experience for your customer. That's just one example. I can think of another one from like a manufacturing experience where you have a set of data being streamed in off of a set of sensors or tests that are being run on components that are at different processes of the manufacturing cycle. And as that data comes in, you can get a real-time dashboard outlining whether the results you're seeing are correct. And that helps you really quickly troubleshoot problems, root cause problems upstream that are leading to defects downstream later. We think there's a very wide variety of applications where access to that knowledge, again, these jobs are typically run in batches today, whether those are nightly, weekly, monthly. In this case, they're just done real time, and so you have access to that reporting and data much faster. We are going to offer a couple poll questions here. Thank you so much for staying on with us, and please take these. That are all about improving the experience that we offer in these webinars. We want to make sure, this takes time. We really appreciate your time. We want to make sure that we're making the most of your time. And so if you could answer these, it'll improve the experience for colleagues who might go through a similar webinar to this, and help us know which webinars and other topics to offer that will benefit you the most. And so we'd really appreciate your time in the next 2 minutes, if you have it, just answer a couple poll questions.